Wow, what a great song right before you preach. Everybody's standing up, enthusiastic. I feel like I can just preach for an hour or so now. I just really got into it. Thank you for that. Wow. Lessons from King Hezekiah, 2 Chronicles chapter 31, verses 19 through 21. You know, we're beginning a new Sunday, new year and such, and we know that and as New Year's come and things change and many people have changes on their heart, New Year's resolutions, and we look back at the old and we look at the new and such, and you know, this first Sunday we're missing Frances Shipp. You know that she passed away. The funeral was this week, and our hearts go out to the family. You know, she's always here, always was, but her place will be missed. And let you know, our prayers are with you as we begin this new year. Sure do. But there are lessons that we can learn. We're going to the Old Testament and start from there, a particular phrase there, and then we'll go on into the New Testament from there also. But apply it to a new year. What about beginning again? King Hezekiah, you turn to 2 Chronicles chapter 31, and particularly those last three verses, and then 2 Chronicles chapter 32, King Hezekiah, his faith in God is tested. In chapter 31, the last verse of chapter 31, it says that he gave his whole heart to doing that which is right. His whole heart. And so, next slide, as you see there, he did it to seek his God. He did it with his whole heart. In other words, he gave it his all. It was 100% to serving God. In the next chapter, chapter 32, it was as the Syrians came and to surround Jerusalem, and they said, you need to surrender to us. So King Hezekiah said, we will not. We believe in Jehovah God, and he will deliver us. And his faith was tested there in chapter 32, and you can read through that. But chapter 31 ends, he sought God. He was not passive in this. He was set with a purpose. I will seek the Lord Jehovah, and the Lord Jehovah will see me through as king, and he did. And so in our lives today, do we seek God? Do we set our hearts with a purpose to say, I will do what God says to do, and I will put God first in my life, and I will do it with all my heart? And that's what we wanted to focus in on today. To seek his God, he did it. Everything that he did that God said to do, he did it with his whole heart. He did it wholeheartedly with purpose. I was looking up giving your whole heart into things and being 100% active and involved in certain things. And you know what I ran across on the internet? I found this particular group on the internet, and it says that the International Institute of Not Doing Much. There it is. Look at it. The National Institute of Not Doing Much. Yeah. You know, you can join that group. It's real easy to join. Yeah, they've made everything easy. You can look on slowdownnow.org. I'm serious about this. Yeah, in fact, there's a whole group dedicated to not giving your whole heart, to not doing very much. You want to do the minimum that you can do. Hey, you belong with us. And I'm thinking about the church. And I'm thinking about the attitude of the church in 2018. Now, are we going to belong to the church, the international church of not doing much? We just want to get by with church. We don't want to be seen as radical or enthusiastic, or you know, we just want to just get by. Well, Lord, listen, what's the minimum that you can do and still go to heaven kind of attitude? Or is it that we're going to be having the attitude of King Hezekiah? He sought the Lord wholeheartedly to do all of his commandments with his whole heart. And so we're issuing a challenge this first Sunday in January. Are we going to be the Institute of Not Doing Much church? Or are we going to be the church that serves the Lord wholeheartedly, with our whole heart, of giving it 100%? You know, when it works this way in several areas. Number one, in business. In business, what do we do? If you have your business, or you're working for a certain business or something, and next slide, if you see that, the right effort matters in business. And Will Rogers said this, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. And think about that. Even if you're doing what's right in business, you'll get run over if you just sit there. He said you've got to pursue it. You've got to be enthusiastic about it. You've got to do it with your whole heart. You can't just sit there in business and give it that half-hearted effort. That doesn't happen. Well, what about in sports? You know, the Olympics are coming up, and we get into the Olympics, and we'll record what we can't watch, but we'll watch a lot in sports. What about in sports? What about that wholehearted effort? What does it say in sports? You know, Knute Rockne said, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Right? He's saying, listen, there's no place for half-hearted effort here on the football field. It said when the going gets tough, when you know, no pain, no gain, right? That's in sports. I mean, you give 110%. When it's tough, that's when your character shows through. Now, Jesus didn't say that in particular, but that same line along with Christianity. Don't give up. Never give in. When the going is tough, the tough get going. Right. That's what we're made of in sports. What about in family life? What about husband and wife relationship? You know, happy wife, happy life, right? Who said that? I don't know. I bet it was some woman, though. Happy wife, happy life. Yeah. You know, what happened to happy husband, happy? There's nothing that rhymes with husband. Happy husband, happy Cleveland or something. I don't know. There's nothing. Happy wife, happy life. You know, I don't know where this saying come from. Men, listen. It works. Right? That's all we can say about that. It works. And so when we give our relationship 100%, it's for the other, not for us. We don't put ourselves first. Put your spouse first. Put your family first. It works in all matters. In business, in sports, in family relationships. It works in religion also. I challenge you as we begin this new year. Serve the Lord with your whole heart. A half-hearted effort involves three things. Number one, inadequate preparation. You know, I remember when I've told this story of when there were 5 of us kids in one bathroom, and we were there 30 minutes early when worship services began. We were there because we began our preparation Saturday night. Mama said, you're not going to be looking for your pants or your socks or your shoes or whatever on Sunday morning. You're not going to come to me. He said, everything is laid out on Saturday night. We shined our shoes on Saturday night. And we got ready for Sunday morning on Saturday night. And we knew Saturday night you don't go out and you don't stay out late because you're going to get up early and go to worship on Sunday morning. That preparation began not just on Sunday morning. We get up and you say, well, are we going to go to church or not? Well, I don't know. Well, what do you think? Do you think we ought to go or not? Preparation began. And so sometimes it is that we're not wholeheartedly serving the Lord because inadequate preparation, we're not determined that this is where we're going to be. When the church meets, we're going to be there. We prepared to be there. It doesn't happen by chance. It's not accidental that this happens. That this is on purpose. That you set aside, this is our life. We're going to do what God says to do, and it's not going to be that we do it half-heartedly. It's going to be that we put our whole heart into it. This is something we're going to do. This is something we're excited to do. This is our life. And so half-hearted effort begins with inadequate preparation, and then half-hearted participation. We're just here, but we're just half-heartedly here. We didn't want to be here. I'm here as a teenager, and I'm here, and I'm just writing notes to one another just because, no, y'all taking sermon notes. I see that. Y'all taking sermon notes, just writing to one another. It's just, I'm here just because Mama made me here. I remember going through that. Mama, I don't feel good on Sunday morning. My stomach hurts. And Mama would say, you'll feel better after church. And she was right. I did. Yeah. And it didn't work with Mama. You get up and you're going to church. That's what we do. We don't have half-hearted participation. We serve the Lord with our whole heart. 100%. Jesus was asked a question in Matthew 22. Teacher, what's the greatest commandment? He said this, you love God. He just didn't say love God, did he? He said love God with all your soul, with all your heart, with all your might, with all your strength. And what is he saying? He's just emphasizing again and again and again, 100%, 100%, 100%, 100% with everything that you have. You serve God. You love God. First and foremost, wholeheartedly. It's not a half-hearted participation. Well, I'll drag in the church, and I'll be there, and I'll kind of sing the songs that I like, I'll sing. Songs I don't like, I won't participate in. I always lead in the prayer, and we're thinking about, well, that's a long prayer that he's leading. Well, when's he going in? The preacher's going on and on and on, and when's he going to finish? Because we're ready to get out of here. You know, are we just half-heartedly involved in worship? We're here. But are we really participating? Worship is to be involved in spirit and truth. It is total participation. And then what about the Christian life when you leave the worship services? We were reading in the book of Philippians this morning in Bible class, and Paul was in prison. And he said in chapter 1, verse 12 and following, when the church was concerned about him in prison, he said, don't be concerned about that. The things that have happened to me have happened to further the gospel. I've taken advantage of preaching the gospel in places that I would not be able to preach the gospel to because I'm now in prison. And it's said that the church heard this and they began to proclaim the gospel with boldness because of that. Paul said, I'm just not by and by waiting in prison, and then when I get out of prison, then I can preach the gospel. He wasn't half-hearted participating in being a Christian. Wherever he was, in whatever circumstance, he preached the gospel. Now what about you? You're going out in this week. You're meeting people. Will they know that you're a Christian? Will they see it in the way that you talk? Will they hear about Jesus in the words that you speak? What about prayer life? Can people know that you participate in prayer, Bible study? Or we're just doing the minimum, we're just getting by as Christians. Again, half-hearted effort involves not only half-hearted participation, but improper motivation. What motivates us to be here? What motivates us to live the Christian life? What motivates us to let our light shine as we go into the world? And what motivates us? Well, I have to do it. Well, I'm made to do it. Well, I'll grudgingly do it. You know when it says God loves a cheerful giver, when we give our money, not grudgingly or have to give. God loves a cheerful giver. You know, and this is just one example of giving an offering. Are we grudgingly giving of what we have or what God has blessed us with? Grudgingly? Oh, well, the plate's being passed, so I've got to give some. I've got to. Well, it's Sunday morning. I've got to go to church because there are a lot of things I'd rather be doing, but I'll grudgingly go. Improper motivation. Just think about this in business or in sports or in family life. What kind of marriage would it be without inadequate preparation, half-hearted participation, improper motivation? What kind of business would you run with this type of attitude? Wouldn't go anywhere, would it? And although business and sports and family is important, your soul, are you listening? Your soul is the most important possession here on this earth. Because only your soul lives forever. And we've got to understand that we're making preparation for eternity here upon this earth. And so when we participate in this, what's our effort involved? Giving with all your heart involves four things. Look at this. And I went to the book of Corinthians for this. 2 Corinthians chapter 8. Number one, it's giving in a time of affliction. Now, you think about this. With half-hearted participation, when the going gets tough, right? What did Knute Rockne say? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. And Paul said here, whenever the church in Corinth was giving, now in particular they're giving to help the saints in Jerusalem, but you can apply this in all areas of Christianity. Your prayer life, your Bible reading dedication, your benevolence toward others, your love toward others, your evangelism toward others. You can apply this in your Christian growth area. And so in time of affliction, whenever times are tough, do we continue to let our light shine? Do we continue to grow as a Christian? Do we continue to press on, or do we just kind of pull in? When Paul was in prison, and there he was taken from his place, his missionary journeys. He was put in prison for a period, we know at least 2 years that he spent there. Did he say, well, listen, the going is tough. I'm in prison. I'm just not going to participate in evangelism at this time. And then when I get out of prison, when things are good, then I'll let my light shine. Then I'll be a missionary. Then I'll evangelize people. He didn't do that. When the going is tough, in times of affliction, it said, however, in great trial of affliction, the abundance of their joy and their deep poverty abounded. It was made even more evident. Have you had affliction in your life? Yes, we have. If you haven't had affliction in your life, it will be there. You're just not old enough yet. Affliction is part of life. In times of affliction, what are we to do? We are to abound in times of affliction. That's a wholehearted effort. That's serving God with all your heart when you abound in times of affliction. And I've seen it over and over and over with this congregation. How that in times of the loss of a loved one, for example, we have the loss of a loved one with Francis Ship, how a family pulls together and love just abounds in that time of affliction. I've seen it in membership here whenever you get news from that test results. You know, sometimes we announce so-and-so's going next week for test. And let's have prayer for them. And you think, well, for tests, that's not surgery. That's just testing. What does that matter if we have tests done? You don't know what all is involved and what all they're going through, and they get the results from those tests. And the doctor says, you need to come into my office, and I'm going to give you those test results. And you say, oh, no. Why can't you just do it on the phone? They say, no, you need to come into the office. We're going to go in this little room, and we're going to talk about this. And I've seen your faith abound in times like this, where you didn't pull in, you didn't say, well, Lord, why did you have this great affliction upon me with this health problem? I've seen it, your faith and love abound in times of affliction. Giving with all your heart involves abounding in times of affliction. Number two, giving with all your heart involves abounding in times of poverty, in times when you are without. Let me give you an example from the Bible with Paul. Later on in 2 Corinthians, Paul talks about his thorn in the flesh, chapter 12. Whatever the thorn in the flesh was, we don't know what it was. Whatever it was, he prayed to God, remove this thorn in the flesh that I have. This great hindrance to me in my life. And God did not remove it. But Paul prayed 3 times. Now you think if Paul is praying for something, that he's got a relationship, you know, he and God are just like this, right? Paul. Certainly if Paul prayed, it's going to happen. And Paul prayed that thorn in the flesh be removed, and it was not. And God said, my grace is sufficient unto you. And Paul said this. Listen to what Paul said in his weakness. He said, when I am weak, then am I strong. In Paul's weakness, he learned to rely on God and not Paul. And sometimes in our poverty, in our weakness, we can relate weakness with poverty. Times of where we don't know what to do. We don't know where to turn. We don't know what's going to happen. We're so depressed. We're so dejected. We don't know if we can keep on keeping on. What do we do? Giving with your whole heart involves giving in times of poverty. In times of weakness, don't quit. In times of poverty, in times when we were without, that's when we lean on God the most. Number 3, giving with all your heart involves in 2 Corinthians. To their power, it says, I bear record, yea, beyond their power. They were willing of themselves. Number 3, giving with all your heart involves giving beyond our power. What can I do? Sometimes we look at what can I do and we limit ourselves to what we can do. And God does not set limits on us. Paul said, Philippians 4, verse 13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He didn't say I can do some things. Right? We say, I can do some things, or I can't do anything. Whoever said that? I can't do anything. Let me challenge you to do one more thing. One more. I don't know what it may be. Let me give some suggestions to make one visit to some of our shut-ins. And we have several who are not able to be out. They have been faithful all the days of their life. Some of them have been Bible class teachers, and they're not able to be out. And they may be thinking, well, the church has forgotten me. No one calls. No one comes to visit. No one sends a card. They've forgotten. I'm old. They've forgotten now. Can you make a visit, a phone call, send a card to some of our shut-ins? To those who are sick, the same thing. Just to let someone know that you're thinking about them. Can you just do one more thing? Can we reach out? Is there someone that we can help with benevolence this week? Maybe pray for opportunity to help someone, and maybe God would open that door of opportunity. So I challenge you to do one thing this week. And you said, oh, well, I can't do that. I can't talk to anyone about becoming a Christian. I can't do that. Well, let me tell you. Pray first and see if that opportunity is there. He said, go beyond ourselves. Don't limit ourselves in this box. God does not limit us. God challenges us. How that beyond their power. And then number 4, they were willing. That's all that God asked. Someone once says the greatest ability that God is looking for is availability. Are you available? Are you willing? If you are willing, God will make it possible. Not because of what we do, but because of what He does. To give 100%. To say, to serve God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. King Hezekiah followed the commandments of God with his whole heart. What about you? With our whole heart. If we do, we'll find 2 results. Number 1, we'll find God. Look at what it says here as you continue. In Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 13, you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. You find God. With a half-hearted participation, we may find God, but with a wholehearted participation, we find God like we never have before. You search for me with all your heart. You seek me with all your heart. You will find me. You will. We'll find God. And number two, we'll find purpose in our life. Look at what he says in Ephesians. Well, Jeremiah 23, we find God, we find purpose. We're his workmanship. We are what he created with his hands. Created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God has prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. In Romans chapter 6, verse 3 and 4, when it says that we were buried with him in baptism, and that like Christ was raised up from the dead, we are raised from that watery grave of baptism. And it says in verse 4 that we should walk in newness of life. What's that new life? That we walk in good works. Again, he said, and I want to end with this particular verse. Again, he said, therefore, my beloved brethren, you be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, inasmuch as you know your labor is not in vain. What is he saying? He's saying everything that we do and everything that we say and every place we go for the name of the Lord is not in vain. It's not. Sometimes it may be that we say something and we do something, we say, well, I just wasted my efforts there. No, you didn't. Not when it's the Lord's work. Your labor is not in vain. It is not empty. It is the most important thing you'll ever do upon this earth. King Hezekiah did it with his whole heart. And I challenge you this morning to look within yourselves and say, is there more that I can do? Can I be with all my heart? Have I been half-hearted or wholehearted? You know. What a great challenge. What a great moment. Beginning of a new year. Beginning of a new person. Beginning of a new church. To serve the Lord wholeheartedly. I am resolved. It's the invitation song. Put that up here. I'm resolved. To do what? I am resolved. I will not, as Will Rogers say, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you stay there. If you just sit there. He said, I'm resolved, even though we're on the right track, I want to do something. I want to improve. I want people to see a difference this year. I'm resolved to make that change. If we can help you in any way, I want you to respond right now while we stand and while we sing.